Hi everyone, thank you for coming back to my channel. This is part 2 of Satan's Minions and Spiritual War. In this video, I'll discuss Reptilians Nibiru and of course how it ties to the end times right now. And our tribulation is about to begin. Okay, let's get started. Who are the Reptilians? This is the theory of the reptilian race, also sometimes known as lizard people, draconians, saurians, or reptoids. Reptilians have actually cropped up in science fiction throughout the years' time and again. They've been written about by Robert Howard, Clark Smith, and H.P. Lovecraft. Sometimes real life mimics fiction, but more often fiction mimics real life. Could it be that the inspiration for these stories run deeper? When Robert Howard wrote about Serpent Man in his story The Shadow Kingdom in 1929, he was actually inspired by an idea presented by the co-founder of the Theosophical Society, Helena Blavatsky. Blavatsky's great work was The Secret Doctrine, and in it she talked about dragon men, who might once have inhabited a lost civilization called Lemuria. Already we are getting out of the realms of fiction and now traversing a landscape where mysticism, archaeology, world history, and astronomy intersect. Delving deep into occult lore, you will find mentions of reptilian beings time and again. These beings crop up way too frequently to be a coincidence. They wake theories of the reptilian elite. If you want to learn everything there is to know about the reptilians, David Icke is your go-to guy. If you have been around the block a few times in conspiracy circles, then you have doubtless heard his name. David Icke differs from a lot of conspiracy theorists in that his life and career were pretty mainstream for a long time. Originally, he was a professional footballer. Later in the 80s, he joined the BBC as a prominent sports presenter on Newsnight. He was so popular he eventually co-hosted Grandstand, which was BBC's big sports program at the time. In 1990, everything changed. One day, as he was standing at a newsstand, Icke felt a draw toward a book written by a psychic healer from Brighton named Betty Shine. Eventually, he visited her, and she told him she had a prediction for him, that he would become a great spiritual healer. From that point on, it was down the rabbit hole. Icke experienced one strange event after another. Eventually, he was invited onto a BBC chat show called Wogan. On the show, he went public with his unusual beliefs. The result was mass ridicule. From that moment on, Icke was branded a paranoid by the mainstream media, but conspiracy theorists and UFO hunters began listening with enthusiasm. David Icke first began talking about the reptilians in The Biggest Secret in 1999. It is Icke's belief that the Anunnaki gods of Babylonian law are in fact a race of reptilian aliens who hail from the constellation Draco. And not only did they walk the earth as gods in the days of yore, but they still walk among us today as shapeshifters. Icke is not the first writer to suggest the theory of ancient astronauts. Others who have come before him include Erich von Däniken, who wrote Chariots of the Gods in 1968, and Zachariah Sitchin, who penned the Divine Encounters in 1995. It should be noted the reptilians are believed not only to come from another star system, but also another dimension. According to David Icke, the universe is actually a multiverse, and different dimensions occupy the same space, but are only accessible one at a time, or in our case, three. If you could push through dimensions, you would find other objects and species occupying the same space you are in now. So the reptilians come from the Draco constellation, but not our Draco constellation. Icke writes that they inhabit the fourth dimension, which is just one dimension over from our own world. Having crossed over, they can manipulate us to their own ends. This connects back to occult lore again. If you know much about magic, you may be familiar with the practice of summoning entities, most of which will try to strike bargains. It believes that these entities are the reptilians, and this is yet another way in which they cross over into our world. Why don't we see reptilians running around all over the place? Good question. It posits several explanations. Reptilians are shapeshifters. They are already humanoids that walk on two legs and, in some sense, look quite similar to us. It would not be a big leap or a hard adaptation for them to live amongst us as humans. Many of the reptilians may actually be living in caves deep underground. So recently there is drones all over the places in US flying around and simply looks like they're searching for something. So on the news, alternative news channels, some of them say they're looking for the lost nuclear weapons. Some of them say they just mapping out gun owners in the future when gun confiscation. They can easily locate gun owners, but nobody mentioned about maybe, just maybe, they are searching for underground reptilians caves. So this could be one of the main reasons why there are so many drones flying around, but nobody knows what is really going on. The world we see and the world as it is are two very different things. Even if you do not literally believe in a holographic universe, you have to admit that quite often we allow the wool to be pulled over our eyes by politicians, CEOs, and all manner of scammers and frauds. Is it really so hard to believe that a species that already lives like sheep may be bowing to extraterrestrial authorities? People miss what is right in front of them and vote against their own self-interests every day. Are Anunnaki the same as reptilians? This is a good question, and there is some connection here. Some people say yes, the reptilians and the Anunnaki are one and the same. Others point toward ancient carvings of Anunnaki as evidence against this theory. Only some of the carvings show reptilian figures. Many show figures that look more like human or even bird-like. I'm not sure if you guys remember that's a movie a few years ago called Birdman. And I think that is some kind of hinting that among us there actually is a species called birdman, bird-like human. Just a thought. This could mean that the reptilians are just one species of Anunnaki. It might also mean, however, that the reptilians and Anunnaki are indeed one and the same, and those figures that did not look reptilian were simply shape shifters like we have today. Why are the reptilians here? What would this super advanced race want with a lot of lowly humans? Well, what would we want with an inferior race that was easy to manipulate? Just as human beings love power, so do reptilians. David says that the reptilian race are here in order to mine monatomic gold with the aid of human slaves, which apparently can boost the power of their nervous systems. This is how they are able to shapeshift, cross dimensions, and so on. They also derive energy from human suffering, so it is well within their interests that we wage war, engage in animal cruelty, and so on. This is why the reptilians have placed shapeshifters in positions of power. So long as the human race is enthralled to their interests, they suffer, and if they suffer, they serve the needs of the reptilians. Even non-believers have to admit there is something intuitively familiar in this narrative. Whether you believe as Ike does that there literally are cold-blooded aliens or not, the cold-blooded actions of world leaders, especially all over the course of the 20th century, is enough to make us wonder whether our leaders are human. We certainly do live in a culture of alienation. List of reptilian celebrities. Looking for a list of reptilian shapeshifters? You're a lot alone. Everyday believers in the reptilian bloodline are trying to identify shapeshifters and hybrids in our midst. Obviously, there is a ton of disagreement over who is a lizard and who isn't, but there are some popular allegations. Here is the list. As you can see, the list is all over the place, including both left and right wing politicians and a range of movie stars and singers. A better question might be, who isn't a reptilian? How to identify reptilian hybrids? Want to know how to spot reptilians? You need to look for both physical characteristics, which bleed through the shape-shifting guise, and you need to look for personality traits of reptilians as well. Physical traits. If a person has narrow, slit-like eyes and facial features which appear suggestive of a lizard, they may be a shapeshifter. Reptilians on the whole are believed to be quite tall, so this may also be a giveaway. If you look around, you will find videos and pictures suggesting that sometimes reptilians lose control of aspects of their shape-shifting abilities, resulting in strange textures on their skin or changes in their eyes. Personality traits. Reptilians are cunning, expert manipulators. Power-hungry individuals may be reptilians. Reptilians are energy vampires. They are draining to be around. Narcissism and related traits, like gaslighting, could indicate you are dealing with a reptilian. Destructive sadism may also be a sign of reptilian. Remember, they feed on suffering. Reptilians in the mainstream. When a lot of people read about reptilians and David X theories for the first time, it all seems pretty far out there. But if you think about it, there are a lot of places where reptilians crop up in mainstream media, especially in fictional universes. Think about Lord Voldemort, the slick-like fascistic evil wizard of Harry Potter lore. Another fun example is the Silurians from Doctor Who. The Silurians aren't evil, and they aren't even aliens, but they are ancient reptilian humanoids living in secret caves deep underground. This ties in with the popular Inner Earth civilization theory that Corey Good and David Wilcock often reference. Whether you believe in the reptilians or not, The methodology of lizard people among us waves throughout human history and is very much a part of our collective identity. It dates back to the Anunnaki and continues to interlace through our daily lives in modern stories such as Doctor Who. It resonates with our experiences of trauma as a species. It is at least in part a reaction to war, to greed, to poverty, to slavery, and all forms of tyranny. Even though the reptilian race is a fearful theory, it is also one of hope. Hope that the universe is bigger than just ourselves, and that if we can liberate ourselves from our suppressors, we might just become a kinder, more compassionate species. Nibiru. Orbits of Nibiru, and then there should be 13 horoscope signs here. The planets, Sun, orbit, Earth orbits. Nibiru is Sumerian for 12 planets. From ancient Sumerian texts, there was a description that our creators came from a yet discovered planet that enters our solar system every 3,600 years. The text said that they were known as the Nephilim, and that they had colonized Earth over 400 years ago. The Bible also mentions this race and calls them the sons of God. The planet of Nibiru was suffering as its atmosphere was eroding. They came to Earth in order to mine minerals, gold, to help repair their atmosphere. This was done in the Middle East and is why we find the Great Pyramid and adjacent pyramids along with constellations in our solar system. They created portals on Earth, highly magnetic areas to send their minerals back to Nibiru. Our race was created around 300,000 years ago as a hybrid race with native Earth animals and the Nephilim to create a race of workers to help mine the minerals from our planets. The alien leaders did not like this interbreeding and chose not to warn mankind about the impending doom on Nibiru in 13,000 BC that would eventually cause the Great Flood here on Earth. However, one of the Anunnaki takes it upon himself to inform Noah of the impending doom so that he can help avoid the race's extinction. From there, the Anunnaki promised to return in time but leave humans alone to rule the planet. The return of Nibiru. The above images shows that in late 2012, Nibiru was in view with our sun. The following is a theory put forth by followers of Sitchin, who believe we are not being told the truth from NASA and our governments, of course. In 2002, the 12 planets of Nibiru physically entered into our solar system, falling in line with Saturn's 12 planets dialogue. After entering in 2002, Nibiru went on to influence the orbits of the planets in our system, changing their axes and poles along the way. It passed close enough to Earth that it influenced our oceans for several years, eventually leading to devastating tsunamis, a new awakening of volcanoes around the world, and influenced definitely the climate and the Earth's axis, which slowly moves, thus altering the position of the physical and magnetic poles. Initially, the planet's orbits came closer to the Earth's south pole and the Sun, and was not visible from Earth. But in late 2012, Nibiru's oblique orbit, which was 35 relative to the solar equator plane, proved to be quite visible, and many pictures and videos were posted online questioning this new star in our skies. However, no one in the mainstream media were asking these type of questions. Why is that? The short answer is because of NASA. They decided to question the true orbit and return of Nibiru to our solar system. The US government had urged them that it was required that they deny the existence of Nibiru in order to not cause widespread panic throughout the world. NASA then prepared a very well-built simulation that projected the orbit of Nibiru, transformed the simulation in video and slick released on the internet. The simulation done by NASA computers presented visually not only the displacement of Nibiru in its orbit, but also the orbits of all the planets of the solar system. This NASA video with this orbit still exists. The goal of the video was clear for any scholar, confuse everyone with a false orbit path for Nibiru. That goal was accomplished as everyone thought there was nothing to be seen or any adverse effects for us on Earth. The true orbit of Nibiru. Nibiru, by all definitions, concepts, and research scholars in the field, is a red or brown dwarf star that carries along with its 7 planets orbiting around each other. Therefore, it is a mini solar system. Nibiru is close to 5 times than Jupiter, so by turn, it is 6,500 times larger than the Earth. Nibiru's true orbit is around our Sun every 3,600 years. With the gigantic size, it has very strong gravitational pull, and it influences our oceans and all magnetic fields. So in 2011, when Nibiru approached the Sun, it began forcefully pulling at the Sun's core. The core of the Sun is only 65 times that Nibiru. Thus, the solar activity in relation to explosions and solar storms has increased so much that the maximal solar started in 2011 and has not stopped to this day, 2014. The emissions are in the ultraviolet solar radiation level, range from 0 to 16, are currently at 15, and the normal is between 9 and 10 units. This was caused by the approach of Nibiru towards the Sun. Keep in mind that the Sun also influenced Nibiru. Because of the magnetic and gravitational intensity of Nibiru, it influenced the Sun in a way that it initiated the reversal of its magnetic poles. The same reversal is also happening here on Earth. Gravitational pull and magnetic fields. In order to perform this reversal, these two forces acting together are required. This mutual attraction between the Sun and Nibiru increased Nibiru's travel speed and velocity. In essence, it was catapulted with accelerated speed away from the Sun. The process is known as slingshot effect and was used by NASA to throw the Galileo probe toward Jupiter. The probe passed twice by the Earth's orbit, then the orbit of Venus, with significantly increased speed, was finally redirected towards Jupiter. The gravitational effect of accelerated so much that its contour to the Sun's orbit will be much longer, but faster than the misleading NASA simulation. Based on this premise, it is our estimate that Nibiru will pass back around us in 2018. That's right. Nibiru is right here now, because right now we can see actually Nibiru in the sky, but they spray so much like nonsense in the sky, the chemtrail, to cover up all the sightings that we could see. That's one of the purpose of chemtrail The other purpose, of course, is destroying our health, On this return, Nibiru will come from the North Pole of the Sun and Earth, so it will be widely seen in the Northern Hemisphere. In this new return, it will be faster than when you came from outer space into our solar system. This distance of Neptune to the Sun is highly convenient for Nibiru because it needs a certain distance to reaccelerate from again tangent to the Sun to get to restart the longer orbit of 3,600 years. Planet 9, mass 10 times bigger than Earth, distance 20 billion miles away, orbit 10,000 to 20,000 years. The Nibiru cataclysm. Has Planet X returned to our solar system? If you have done much reading on the Anunnaki, you probably have at least a passing familiarity with Nibiru. In case you are not familiar with Nibiru, the theory is that there is a planet or other large body in our solar system that remains undiscovered by modern astronomers. This planet, known as Nibiru or Planet X, has an orbit that will bring it close to Earth every 3,600 years. According to the myths and legends surrounding the Anunnaki, Nibiru is their home world. The last time Nibiru was close to Earth, its presence caused the Great Flood, a motif which crops up with astonishing consistency in religious texts and mythologies from around the world. If the legends are true, humanity did survive, of course, but could we survive a second encounter with Nibiru? Maybe not. If Nibiru is real and is indeed in a long orbit, its return is inevitable, which is now. The predicted return of Nibiru is known as the Nibiru cataclysm. While the idea was first popularized in 1995 by Talk founder Nancy Litter, it has since gained a lot of ground and visibility. The Nibiru cataclysm was inspiration for Lars von Trier's 2011 film Melatolia. It also played a key role in a viral marketing campaign for the 2009 film 2012. Has the Caltech discovery of a new planet in our solar system evidence of Nibiru? Now Nibiru has entered the public eye for another reason. For the first time ever, mainstream science has made an astounding discovery which may indicate that Nibiru is real. The research was published by the California Institute of Technology in January of 2016. While the so-called ninth planet has not been directly observed, there is mathematical evidence for its existence. The model in question would answer a number of other mysteries if indeed a ninth planet is in orbit around the Sun. The studies were conducted using computer simulations and mathematical modeling by Mike Brown and Konstantin Batygin. As Brown explains, there have only been two true planets discovered since ancient times, and this would be the third. In other words, the possible existence of Planet 9 is huge news. How huge? According to mathematical models and simulations run by the two Caltech researchers, the ninth planet may have 5,000 times the mass of Pluto. That is no dwarf planet. In fact, that makes it larger than any of the 8 planets we know about. The biggest piece of our solar system may be orbiting unseen. Doesn't that sound a lot like Nibiru? How did this discovery come about? Well, it all has to do with the Kuiper Belt. This is a group of small objects outside the orbit of Neptune. The Kuiper Belt contains numerous asteroids and comets, as well as other small icy bodies. Since being demoted from its official planet status, dwarf planet, Pluto is considered to be part of this belt. One of the Brown's former postdocs, a researcher named Cha Chu-hyo, published a paper on the Kuiper Belt alongside fellow researcher Scott Shepard. In the paper, the two pointed out that 13 of the belt's most distant objects seem to share a certain unusual orbit feature, which might suggest the presence of an unknown planet. The theory seemed unlikely, and many scientists shrugged it off, but Brown was intrigued enough to pursue it. At this point, Brown turned to Vertigan, and the two launched into an intensive study of the distant object in the Kuiper Belt. The two were careful to rule out other possibilities throughout their research. Their first thought was that the Kuiper Belt itself might contain a suspiciously large number of distant, undiscovered objects to exert the gravity needed to cause the anomalous orbital features. Why wouldn't this explanation suffice? The Kuiper Belt would need to contain around 100 times the mass it seems to today in order to produce the anomalous orbits. With this possibility ruled out, Brown and Vertigan turned to the only other likely possibility, a hidden planet. Eventually, their simulations displayed a scenario which could produce the strange orbits. If a giant planet orbited the Sun in an anti-aligned orbit, whereby the planet's closest approach to the Sun, perihelion, is 180 degrees across from that of all the other known objects and planets in orbit. The Kuiper Belt objects might behave in just the way the scientists have observed. Initially, Brown and Vertigan wondered how such an orbit could be stable. They believed that the hypothetical planets would eventually collide with the other objects, just as we might expect from an event like the Nibiru cataclysm. As it turns out, celestial mechanics provided an intriguing answer to this problem, thanks to something called mean motion resonance. The very existence of planet line modifies the orbits of the distant Kuiper Belt objects in just such a way that they do not collide. In other words, it actually cuts a clear path for itself on its journey around the Sun. This is really quite remarkable. What is even more incredible is this. The Planet 9 theory not only explains the strange orbits in the Kuiper Belt, but explains the orbits of other solar system objects such as Sedna and 2012 VP113. On top of that, the simulations predicted the existence of objects in a perpendicular orbit to the plane of the planets. Researchers have found 4 of these to date. But what about 3,600 years orbit of Nibiru? One notable difference between Caltech's discovery and the original Nibiru theory concerns the period of the orbit. According to Zechariah Sitchin, one of the leading proponents of the Nibiru theory, Nibiru should pass by Earth every 3,600 years. This would mean that the large planet heading towards Earth should arrive between 2090 to 2370. According to the Caltech scientists, however, Planet 9 would take anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 years to orbit the Sun. While you may be ready to release a sign of disappointment, hold tight because Planet 9 may still be Nibiru. Zechariah himself passed away in 2010. but his nephew has been maintaining and updating his website. In January, he posted an update commenting that he recently spoke to his father, Amos Zechariah brother, holds a PhD in aeronautical and mechanical engineering and was the one who originally calculated Nibiru's orbit for Zechariah. Conducting some additional calculations, he provided the following astonishing report. If Nibiru's orbit of 3,600 years was circular rather than elliptical, it would have an orbit of about 10,000 years. This is still not perfect, as the Celtic astronomers do seem to suggest that planet Nine's orbit is likely elliptical, not circular, but it should give you pause. It seems amazing that 10,000 years would come up twice by coincidence, doesn't it? So maybe it isn't a coincidence at all. Maybe this is yet another connecting thread between Planet 9 and Nibiru. The point here is that mainstream science doesn't know everything about our solar system, much less our universe. Maybe we should be wondering about our own theories and beliefs too. Just as mainstream scientists do not know everything about our solar system, we don't know everything about Nibiru. It is time for us to open our minds. Maybe Nibiru does have a 10,000 year orbit. Maybe it is elliptical. Maybe it is circular. Who can say? None of us are experts. Right now, we should just be amazed that science has confirmed Nibiru as a possibility. We also need to learn to step outside of our own preconceptions about the universe and the Anunnaki. Planet X may very well be on its way after all. All we can say with certainty is that it does exist. It will bring plenty more surprises before it reaches us. I hope you guys like this information. Remember to keep an open mind, and we are actually living in a fabrication of the reality in a Satan's world. So let your imagination run wild, because what we are looking in front of us is fake, is fabricated by Satan and his minions. What is real is behind the scene that we can't see. I think pretty much go watch Harry Potter again. Go watch Lord of the Rings. I found so many elements in those movies that is exactly what it is in the Bible. If I have time, I will make a video related to Harry Potter's and Lord of the Rings, how the elements in the movies tie into actually our real world, the real world that behind the scene that we don't know, that is only described in the Bible. Okay, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.